Let's talk about CSS. So I'm gonna present you a problem. As usual, we got an empty app with nothing on it, just hi message, and I would like to play a bit with CSS. So I'm gonna open my let me zoom it in a bit for readability purposes. So I will keep my JavaScript file on the left hand side, and I will keep my CSS file on the right hand side. Because then I can easily get access to all my resources. So imagine that I create a box. So I'm gonna type div class name equals box, and then the box says hello. Yeah? Something quite simple. On the right hand side, let me type dot box, and now if I change the background color to red, let's see what happened. If I go back to my web browser, it works. Yeah, it works. I'm gonna zoom it in. Actually, I'm gonna play it on mobile mode, guys. You remember that to play it on mobile mode, you do right click anywhere, inspect, and then you get access in a second to DevTools, where you can play with the HTML, with the CSS, blah 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 blah. Yeah, cool. So that's what we got so far. Do you remember, guys, how can I add some spacings between my text and the boundaries of the red box? Padding, fantastic. So padding 15 pixels, for instance. Yeah, so once you do that, you got your red box. Let me change the color. I don't like red. It's very, very, very aggressive, yeah? Very aggressive. So let's bring something a bit, maybe something even, yeah, I think blue is okay. Maybe with white text. Yeah, so, you know, fair enough. We got our box, that's all we need. So now, what happened? What happened if suddenly I defined the box class name again, and this time I changed the background color? This is a question for Elijah. Can you tell me, Elijah, what will be the eventual color of the box? Will it be green or blue? Why green? That's interesting. Is the new style, yeah? Actually, look, Elijah is absolutely right. So in CSS, here is Rafa. Good morning, Rafa. We are just starting the workshop, so just in time. So we're talking about CSS. We just created a box, and then we apply some styles. So first of all, we set the background color of the box to blue color, and now we have redefined the box. And Elijah suggested that the new color will be green because we defined it last. That's correct. That's correct. As you can see on the web browser, the color of the box is green. Actually, if you inspect the tools, look, you see when you navigate through the HTML on DevTools, if I manage to find the box, if you click on the box, let me zoom it a bit. It's a bit small, right? So let me zoom it a bit. If you select the box, look at what DevTools is telling you. You see, you got background color blue. You see that line through? Line through means that style wasn't applied because it was overwritten by another style, which is the background color green. So long story short, the last one wins. But now let me change something. Imagine that at the end I declare a div. You know, div without any dot or without anything will affect all the divs on the screen. For simplicity reasons, let me get rid of the parent div. So let me have a single element. So this is the simplest web you can have. Yeah, we have an app with a single div. That's it. Hello, nothing else, nothing more. So now, what if I change background color to orange? That's a question to Maxim. Can Maxim please tell me what will be the eventual color of my box? Will it be blue, green, or orange? Why green? Ah, that's very interesting, Maxime. That's very interesting. Look, without the div, we've learned that the green color wins. Why does it win? Oh, sorry, I changed it. So it wins because exactly the code is read top to bottom, so the last one wins. However, that rule doesn't apply if we go to div. Technically speaking, following the same criteria, you may be thinking, hey, the div is the last rule, so it wins the battle. But look at what happened. So Maxim is right. The color is not orange, it is green. Technically speaking, this is because what we call specificity. Specificity. Get used to that word, guys, because it's very important. A specificity is a number. That's vital in a job interview, guys. You don't know how many times I've been interviewing senior developers and I've been getting answer specificity. Yeah, that's the way CSS determines. And even if they know what specificity is, which is not as common as you may be thinking about, the immense majority of the developers who know what specificity is fail to provide a convincing, a powerful answer. So specificity is a number. It's just a number. So whenever you got a CSS selector, then the browser gives a number to that selector. So the higher the number is, the more specific the selector will be. So does anyone know what's the number associated to the tag selector? The tag selector is when you attack a div, or you attack a label, or you attack an h1, h2, just the tag itself, yeah, without any dot, without anything else. So does anyone know the 10 or 1 or 0? All right, so we got 3 options: 0, 1, or 10. So it's definitely one of these. It's the specificity of the tag selector is 1. Yeah. What about the class selector? What's the specificity associated to the class selector? Oh. Sorry guys, I think I've lost you. Thank you, Siri. I think now here you go, it's back. Yeah, so anyone, guys, specificity of the class selector? Wrong, it's not 100. 10, that's correct, guys. That's correct, it's 10, yeah? So let's have a look to the big picture here. So now Google Chrome needs to print something, yeah? And needs to display some colors. And Google Chrome will say, hey, all right, so the developer is probably not the smartest person in the world because he or she tried to apply the same background color, not 1, not 2, but 3 times. Yeah? So we need to decide which color wins. So then the browser will assign some numbers to each selector. So we'll say, hey, the first one, specificity 10. The second one, specificity 10. The last one, specificity 1. So the tip selector, this is just ignored, yeah? So that line is like if it wasn't existent, because 1 is clearly less than 10. And now Google Chrome will have to decide which one wins, because both selectors have the same specificity number. As you mentioned before, the one being defined at the bottom, or the one defined last, wins the battle. So even though both selectors have the same specificity, the last one wins. Any questions so far? Yes. Yeah, so guys, this, when we talk about the specificity, we talk about individual CSS properties. So for instance, if we move the padding and the color to the div, will these properties remain on the box? Yes or no? Yes, that's correct. Why? Because they haven't been overwritten anywhere else. Yeah. So specificity applies when we have a conflict. Do we have any conflict on the background color? Yes. Do we have any conflict with padding? No. Do we have any conflict on the color? No. Yeah. So specificity is about solving conflicts, and the only conflict we got here is the background color. What happens if I then change the padding on top to 0, for instance? What will be the eventual padding, 0 or 15? It will be well, yeah, that's correct. It's 0 because now we got another conflict, not just on the background color, also with the padding. Yeah. So once again, CSS will say, all right, two CSS selectors are trying to change the padding. So the one on top has a specificity 10. The one at the bottom has a specificity 1. So which one's? Obviously the one at the bottom. Oh, sorry, the one on top. So if I show you the web browser, it will lose. Oh, all right. Now we have something quite interesting. Look. Now you got that was a bit unfortunate because we are playing with divs. And the thing is, the web browser is adding some divs surrounding our divs. That's why now that looks a bit weird. Let me change. Instead of div, let me use a label, because I don't think React is adding any label. It's a bit weird, right? You don't need to know that. But let me try to use something a bit different. So if I have a label and I refresh, here you go. You see, if I have a label, you see that the padding is just missing. Yeah, there is no padding, and there is no padding. The reason is, once again, if you go to the DevTools and you select the box, you will see that the label tried to set a padding of 15 pixels, but now it got overwritten somewhere else. Questions? No, the last one. So if there is a draw, you can see that here you got two boxes. Yeah, there is a draw. Both boxes have the same number, 10 versus 10. The last one wins. Yeah. Anything else, guys? Any questions? Right. Is there a way to change? Obviously, there are multiple ways of changing the decision that the browser takes. So let me give you an example. Imagine that we got a label, and inside of the label you got another label, right? This is valid in HTML. Of course, you may have multiple labels. So can I, guys, do label space label? You see what I've done here? So let's try to understand now this selector. We got a label, that's the first one, and then with the space we said find a label which is inside of another labels. In other words, now the browser will look for a structure of two nested labels. So that's correct. Yeah, technically speaking, you can do that without any problems. So can anybody tell me what's the specificity associated to that selector? No, but the specificity means the number. What's the number? Wrong. It's not 1. Wrong. It's not 10. 1 1. What that means? 11. No, it's not 11. So each tag selector has a specificity of 1. So if we got two tag selectors, the specificity will be 1 plus 1 equals 2. You see? Still. No. So, excuse me. It could be any of that. Yeah. So with number 2, still, number 2 is less than 10. But I hope you get the point. Technically speaking, can I nest? You see what I'm doing, right? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, let me get rid of the padding because otherwise, I'm not gonna complete that because otherwise, eventually, they will go crazy. But I hope you get the point, right? What's the specificity associated to this selector? 6. It's 5, right? We got 5 labels. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 5. So you get the point. Eventually, if we will have a complex HTML structure, we could do something like that. And then this selector will get the victory on the specificity battle. If I ask you, yeah? Yes? That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. Guys, no, there is no simple question enough. So all the questions are valuable. And what was that, Max? What Max has? Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah. So what Max asks is, you know, sometimes we type a dot before the selector. Sometimes we don't type a dot. Yeah. So Max is right. When you put a dot as a prefix of the selector, that means you want to identify the selector by its class or class name. Yeah? When you don't put any class, that means you are gonna identify the selector by the label or by the tag. Could be a label, could be a div, could be a span, could be h1, h2, whatever. Yeah, we're gonna see other type of selectors in a minute. But long story short, so when talking about tag selectors, they are less specific than classes. However, if you build an army of tag selectors, eventually they can get the victory on the specificity battle. Yeah? And what happens if I have, for instance, look, if on top I got on the first one box and then label. So what's the specific? You get that. So let's try to understand that. So first of all, we say, hey, Google Chrome, please find any element with a class box. Where is it? Here you go. We found it. And then find any label inside of it. Yeah, we got plenty of labels. Actually, let me simplify that because otherwise it's going to be a bit more complicated. Yeah. So we got two nested labels. So what's the specificity associated to the first selector? That's correct. That's correct. Was that Lauren? Correct. So 10 plus 1 equals 11. So now let me get rid of some extra things here. Actually, that's let me simplify that because we can hopefully evaluate that. So what will be the eventual background color of the hello message? Blue. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. So let me refresh the page. Here you go. You're right, guys. It's blue. It's blue because even though the first selector is on top, now it got the highest specificity, 11 versus 10 versus 1. Yep. So you can obviously tweak the numbers easily by playing with nested selectors. Any questions so far? No? All right. So let me simplify the exercise a bit. So let's keep a single element for simplicity reasons. So we got the first box specificity is 10. On the second box the specificity is 10 as well. On the last box the specificity is 1. So now the color should be green. So I think someone is sending a message. Let me have a look. It's lagging a bit, Aaron. Yeah, not sure what to tell you. Not sure, guys, if you can see any lag. Really? All right. So I can do that as well. Let me reconnect as well, and we'll see if that any helps. Yeah, guys. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. Let me reconnect. All right. So I'm back. Let me close some. Oh, sorry, I'm on mute. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yay, can you hear me now? Okay, let me close some tabs because let me close Slack too because you know my laptop is suffering quite a bit. So let me close a few things. So hopefully now it should work a bit better. So I'm not sharing the screen, I believe. So let me proceed again. Entire screen. Hello, sir. Yeah. All right. Could you please, guys, confirm that you can see my screen? Cool. Nice. So let's see if it works. If it works decently this time. So I have simplified the layout. So I got a single label and some selectors. You know that now the background color is green because it got the highest specificity value, which is 10, and it's defined last. So now if we check the web browser, can you see the web browser now? So is it fast enough? Yeah, okay, cool, fair enough. So we'll take it from there. Cool. Can anyone tell me, not anyone, let me ask someone. So Lorraine, are you aware of any selector apart from the tag and the class more specific than them? Inline, that's a good answer, but you actually went too far. We'll talk about inline later on. Something before before writing inline styles. Do you know? Yeah. An ID, I like that, Lorraine. Correct. So you know, guys, that you can type IDs. ID equal Lorraine, for instance. Yeah. So now the label has tag label, class box, and ID. And Lorraine, can you tell me how to change the class, how to change the style associated to with a hash? That's correct. When you type a hash, Lorraine, that will change that will select the element based on the ID. Yeah, you see, guys, the hash. So let's change the background color. Background color purple, for instance. Yeah. So, can anybody tell me what's the specificity number associated to the ID selector? 100. That's correct. That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So the specificity of the ID selector is 100. Yeah. In other words, because the ID selector got the highest specificity number, now the color of our box should be obviously purple. Let's have a look. Here we go. We got our purple box. Yeah. Do you have any questions? No? Can we, guys, defeat the ID selector by nesting 100 labels? Well, if our HTML structure allows you to do that, yeah, technically speaking, I'm not going to do that obviously, but technically speaking, yes, you can do that. It goes without saying that if you're in a job interview and you see that someone wrote 100 labels one after the other, please leave everything, leave your belongings, and just run away as soon as possible. Yeah? All right, so ID selector specificity 100. That's interesting. Then Lorraine mentioned something very interesting. She talked about inline styles. So if you've never heard about that, let me show you how that works. In HTML, you can do that. You can do style equals background color and then your background color. So for instance, yellow. That's valid, technically speaking, in HTML. Let's see what happened if we go back to the browser. Look, you got an error. So one of the things that React is really good at is on error reporting. When you do something wrong, and we do things wrong with React often, at least React is really good telling you what you did wrong and how to solve the problem. So guys, even though this code is absolutely valid in HTML, do you remember on the first day or the second day of the bootcamp I told you this is JSX, which is very similar to HTML, but there are some differences. That's a good difference. let's pay attention to the error message. The style property expects a mapping of blah 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 blah, and then they tell you an example. In other words, even though once again that's valid in HTML, you cannot do that in React, unfortunately. You need to change the expression a bit. And the way you write that with React is you need to write a JavaScript object. You need to pass curly brackets first, because you are going to write some JavaScript inside of it, and now you pass an object. So you need another couple of curly braces, and then your key value. So you need to type something like background color and then yellow. You don't really have to learn that, because something I'll show you in a minute. But that's, at least technically speaking, that's the way you can define inline styles with React. So, can anyone tell me what's the specificity value associated to the inline selector? I don't know if it's the highest or not, but I want a number for now, and then we'll see if it's the highest or not. That's correct. Was that Aaron? Yeah, so Aaron is right. The specificity of the inline selector is 1000. So then you can say we got our ugly white text on top of the weird yellow background. Yeah, so that's correct, technically speaking. And now I got a question for you. If you're in a job interview and you see something like that, what would you say? In other words, what do you think about inline selectors? Is that something that you believe it's a good thing, or it's an anti-pattern, and why? Yeah, I completely agree with Maxim. Even though that is correct, it works, right? So it works. This is considered an anti-pattern, yeah. So if you ever come across that code, it's a good opportunity to reflect that under your point of view. You wouldn't do that probably, yeah, because it's about separation of concerns. We got the HTML on the right hand side, on the left hand side, fine. We got the styles on the right hand side, fine. You see here we are crossing the line, we are mixing things, and eventually we'll end up having what we call spaghetti code. Not sure if you heard that expression before. Spaghetti code means when you know spaghetti, when things get mixed and get messy. So that's pretty much the same thing. We got spaghetti code because we are mixing stuff. Yeah, we're mixing HTML with CSS, and that's not a good thing. There are some very deep reasons why we may use inline styling. One of them is performance. So companies like Amazon, they do inline styling because inline styles are supposed to be slightly more performant than external CSS styles. But once again, the difference may be 0.01%. So for the immense majority of the web application, that doesn't pay off. And even if Amazon runs inline styles, they don't write all the styles here on the HTML. They have some processes to migrate from what you got on the right to what you got on the left. Yeah, you'll learn some of these things, some of these processes on task number 17. So once you deploy your app to the cloud on task number 17, you will see that there are some processes that are executed in order to optimize your files, your folders for the cloud. Yeah, so you don't need to know that. This is just some sort of programming culture in case you are curious about it. But generally speaking, you can consider that inline styles is an anti-pattern. Generally speaking. Any questions? Yep. Yes. Yep. That's a really good question, Aaron. So IDs used to be very important in the 90s. Why? Because imagine I got a button. Yeah, imagine I got a button here and I want to, whenever I click on the button, I want to count how many times I click on the button. Yeah, count 0, and then it will be 1, and then it will be 2, then it will be 3, it will be 4. You know, I want to build that. Something you'll see on React is, with React, this is very easy. With React, you can do on click, and then you do your stuff here. Yeah, we'll talk about these things next week when talking about stateful components. So, long story short, today you don't need the ID. You don't need the ID. However, before React, before Angular, in the 90s, the way we solved that problem was by doing something weird. We had with JavaScript to select the button. And the easiest way to select the button was by using something you may have heard about called document.getElementById. And then here you specify the ID. So ID equals, for instance, Aaron. So then I type here Aaron, and then blah 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 blah. You do whatever you have to do with the button. Yeah. So here you do on click. This is pseudocode, so don't take this code literally, but on click, and here you do your logic. Okay. So historically speaking, IDs were very useful for JavaScript, because thanks to IDs we could easily interact with our DOM elements, with our HTML elements. These days, IDs are a bit weird. I never write an ID unless, I don't know, something weird happens, yeah? Because thanks to libraries like React, they look after all these things for us. But hey, even though they are not that popular anymore, if you want, you can use them, right? So that's why we should consider them in regards to specificity. Any questions, guys? Yes, I would like to show you some sort of graphic representation of all the different elements, Elijah, of the specificity, all the different selector types. Yeah, let me show you that list at the end of this session. Okay, cool, thank you. Anything else, guys? Is there anything about the inline selector? Is there a way to defeat the inline selector? Well, yeah, of course, combining 1000 labels, yeah, but without combining selectors, is there a way? Is there any other type of selector more specific? Array? No. Array? Look at what Elena said. Adding the word important. That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. Guys, look. Let me present you a problem. Imagine that I start building the app and I add this label. And after me, Elijah added that box, because Elijah said background color orange, I don't like that, the background color should be blue. And after Elijah, we got Max, who said, no, the background color shouldn't be blue, it should be green. Sorry guys, I can hear some echo. Let me check, who is that? It's maybe no one this time, it's just me. Alright, sorry guys, that's I think that's my fault. I don't know why the headsets got a bit crazy sometimes. Alright, so sorry about that. Where I was, yeah, so we were talking about selectors, yeah? So I changed the color to orange, then, I don't know, whoever, Elijah changed the color to blue, and after that, Max changed the color to green, and then Rafa said, no, it shouldn't be green, it should be purple, so I add an ID, and then eventually Vicky said, no, I don't like any of these colors, I want to win this battle, I want to change the color to yellow. So what happened if 2 weeks later I come back to the project? When I left the project before going on holidays to Malibu, my background color was orange, and now suddenly it's yellow. It's like, what the hell have these guys been doing this time? Yes. So then I said, no, I cannot accept that. So I want to win this battle. So look, I can do that. I can add /important. /important, that's a hack, that's a trick to increase the specificity of the selector. So does anyone know what's the specificity associated to the important suffix? That's correct, Lauren. important specificity 10,000. Okay? And obviously that wins the battle. But then what happens if then, well, before going any further, yes, that's correct. And now my question is, what do you think about it? Is it, if you come across that suffix / important, are you happy with it? What do you think about using it? Why it's not good? Yeah, I agree with Elena. So guys, whenever you see that, that means there is something smelly. So because if I do that, then Elijah may say, all right, why this guy has changed my color again? No. I want to be blue, important, and then Maxine will say, no, it should be green. So another important, and then Elena will say, no, it should be purple. You get my point, right? Eventually, we are losing the battle because that CSS is very hard to maintain. So to me, there is a very effective way to check the quality of the CSS code. And that way is check how many times developers are using the important suffix. The less they use it, the better the structure of the CSS is. Yeah? So try to avoid using /important as much as possible because that's smelly, generally speaking. Same as the inline styles, yeah? That's a bit smelly. Obviously, software is not a rocket science thing. So even if you try to look after your CSS, blah, 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 in some occasions you may use it. You know, guys, there is a joke on the internet about measuring the quality of software by what the facts per minute. Have you heard that before? No? So, let me go to Google, software quality, what the facts per minute. Let me show you. It's a joke, but I think this is quite realistic. So once again, guys, when you watch tutorials on YouTube, everything is perfect, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, software is far away from being perfect. And that's a good example. When a team of people is running a code review, so if they complain about the code twice per minute, the code is really good. If they complain about the code 10 times per minute, the code is bullshit. Yeah. So that's a good example, guys. So we always say, no, don't do inline styling, don't add the /important. But in some particular occasions, because of whatever reason, could be technical reasons, could be, guys, imagine that there is a bug in production, suddenly everything is broken and you don't have time to fix it, so whatever. So real life is sometimes a bit disconnected from what tutorials show you. Yeah, but it is true that obviously at least the mindset is the less hacks you have in your code, the better. Yeah, and that's a good example. Any questions? No one? All right. So yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I got the last question for you guys. We've been increasing the specificity counter 1, 10, 100, 1000, 10,000. But on the other way around, is there anything less specific than the tag selector? No, not really. But let me show you something. There is something called the star selector or the wildcard selector. Thankfully that's not very common in CSS because that feels a bit weird to me. But technically speaking, you can use that. So specificity of the wildcard selector is. Can anyone figure out? 0. That's correct, guys. That's correct. 0. Yeah. So here you can change the background color, but obviously that won't make any effect, right? Background color to aqua. You know there was a color called aqua. I didn't, right? So you can do that. Technically speaking, that's correct, but the specificity is 0. So when talking about the specificity, it's important to know that the range starts at 0. Yeah. What the star selector? So that's a selector that will be applied to every single element on your user interface. That's why that feels a bit weird. Why do you want to apply styles to every single element on your user interface? That's a bit weird. Yeah, but technically speaking, you can use it. So if you want, you got it. Yeah. 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 That's a good question. I don't think it will be any useful because, guys, do you know what CSS stands for, by the way? Correct. Cascading or cascade style sheets or something like that, yeah? So the first word is important, cascade. What cascade means? What cascade means? Cascading, and that's a bit off topic. Cascading means if I have a div with class name, I don't know, class name box again here, and then I got a label, hello. If I add box background color blue, will the label be displayed in blue color with blue background? Yes or no? And why? No? So what will be the background color of the label? Default. Not quite, guys. Not quite. So whenever you define a style sheet in CSS, it cascades down. That means that if the box has a blue background color, then the label will inherit that background color. So the label will have a background color of blue as well. So if I show you, you see the background color of the box is blue. So that's not really related to specificity. This is about inheritance. So CSS cascades down. Likewise, what happens if I change the font size? To imagine that I want my website, my portfolio, to have a font size by default of 30 pixels. So if I do that, yes, my label will inherit that, which is great, because otherwise, do you imagine that styles wouldn't be cascade down, guys? It will be so exhausting to maintain the code, because I will have to apply a font size of 30 pixels to all the labels. I will have to apply a font size of 30 pixels to all the, I don't know, span, to all the div, to everything, right? Thankfully, because CSS cascades down, whenever you define a property, it's applied all the way down, unless, of course, at some point you overwrite it. That's why, to me, the star selector, I don't know, that feels a bit weird, because the star selector means change the background color of the div and change the background color. So for instance, guys, if we do that, it's the same result. So if I play it, well, now the thing is, because the star selector even applies to the HTML and everything, you know, it fills all the screen. That's a bit weird. But ignoring that little detail, so what we're saying is, go to the div and change the background color and change the font size. Then go to the label and change the background color and change the font size. So it's a bit exhausting. It's not even performant, because we are applying some CSS rules to every single element on the screen. I think it feels much more natural to, if you want to have some common styles, then apply them on the root element, and then all the children will inherit them. Yeah. Obviously, yeah. I mean, every project is different, and we will we will have to see why they are doing that. Also, don't forget, guys, based on what you've been saying, that we can join multiple CSS classes. So, for instance, imagine that I got two boxes. Yeah. So let's have. Let me create a div. And inside of my div, I got div class name equals box1, and then I got a box2. Box1 and box2. So imagine that both boxes, they share some properties. So for instance, box1 background color blue, color white, padding 30 pixels, margin whatever, yeah, 15 pixels, something like that. So first of all, how can I apply the same styles to the box2? Well, there are multiple options here. The first thing is I can copy and paste everything, right? I can do that. Technically speaking, that's correct. So now all the boxes have the same styles. However, that's not efficient because I'm repeating everything by myself. You see, I'm duplicating the code. So something you can do is you can do that. Box1, comma, box2. Yeah. And now that causes the same effect. So now everything, yeah, go for it. So you are thinking about doing dot box1 and then what? Space dot box2. All right, that's interesting. That's interesting. So wait, because there are multiple use cases scenarios here. So first of all, what will be the background color of the box1? Anyone? Blue. What will be the background color of the box2? Not that easy. Why green? Why blue? So what we got on line number 9, pay attention guys, is first of all, find a box, find an element with the class name box1. Do you have an element with class name box1? Where is it? Here, we found it. Line number 8. And then pay attention to the space, guys. The space is vital. The space says, all right, once you manage to find box1, then inside of box1, find another element with class name box2. Do we have any class name box2 inside of box1? No. Box1 and box2, they are independent. They are not nested at all. Because of that, that CSS rule won't apply. In other words, both boxes will be blue. Yeah? So that space is important. And now the question is, what happens if I remove the space? Can anyone tell me what's the meaning of this selector in CSS without the space? Can you repeat that, Maxim, please? What do you mean miss? What do you mean miss? What do you mean? Not apply the rule. Not apply. No. That's not the way it works. I'm afraid, Maxim. That's not the way it works. So the way it works is find an element with the class box1. Do we have any element with class box1? Yes, we found it. Here you go. Yeah. So far so good. And then the element should also have the class box2. So both classes should be available on the element. Do we have any element with both classes, box1 and box2? No. So that style won't apply neither. If we want to make that work, we will need to do that. Look, box 1 and then box 2. So now this style will be applied. Why? Because once again, do we have any element with class name box 1? Yes. And box 2 all together? Yes. The first box has 2 classes. Because of that, let's pay attention to the specificity once again. What's the specificity of the first selector, guys? 10. That's correct, because we got single selectors, either box 1 or box 2. What's the specificity associated to the second selector? 20. That's correct, because we got 10 plus 10. So now, if I refresh, you see, the box 1 is displayed in green color. So you may be thinking, what's the point of building that? The point is, what happened if you got multiple boxes that share many of the styles, but one of them is different. So that, for instance, apply with buttons. You know, when you are playing with an app and all the buttons are gray or whatever color they are, but suddenly one of the buttons, the submit button, for instance, is green or blue or red because it's important. So we can do something. We can add a class name button. So button, first button. Yeah, let me add some buttons. So first button, second button, third button, blah blah blah. You got 3 buttons. So of course I can do on every button. I got border 1 pixel, solid blue, background color gray. That's a bit weird, right? But and then color black. So if we run that, you see I got 390 buttons. Yeah. Button. And what happened if suddenly on the last button, on the last one, I want to change some colors? For instance, I want the submit button to be with different background color. For instance, with, I don't know, blue background color as well, because that's a special action. Yeah. So what you can do is I can add a new class name here, like, I don't know, submit or whatever you want. So now I can do dot button dot submit, and then I can change just the background color for that special button. You see? So we have a base class button that will apply on all the elements, and then whenever you want to change some styles on a particular button, you can concatenate the selectors like this. Yeah, the first selector will have a specificity of 10. The second selector will have a specificity of 20. So now you can see that the last button has a special class name. Questions? Will it? Okay, that's a good question. So will this submit button, how only the submit? Okay, fantastic, like that, right? Okay, that's very interesting, Elena. What will be the eventual background color of the submit button? So that's a question for instance, Rafa. Are you around, Rafa? No? So what about Maxim? Maxim, are you around? So what's the background color of the submit button? Blue. Why? Yeah, but we, okay, fair enough. But the button, the submit button, it keeps the button class, and according to the button class, the background color should be gray. So why blue? Why? So what's this? Yeah, guys, that's all about the specificity. What's the specificity on the first button? Selector. 10. What's the specificity on the submit selector? 10. So they're equal. That's correct. What happened when they're equal? Exactly. The last one wins. That's why the button still keeps the specificity, the blue color. What happened if we move the submit selector to the top? Correct. As Maxim said, the background color is gonna be gray. So, Elijah, what do you think? What do you think about this? Yeah, and what happened? Elijah, I got a question for you. What happened if I add the slash important suffix on the submit selector? What will be the eventual background color of the submit button? Will it be blue or gray, and why? That's correct, my friend. That's absolutely right. Yeah. So now we are changing the rules of the game because we added the important suffix. So now, obviously, that selector is way more specific. Anything else, guys?
So when you're referring to
No, you don't need to. You don't need to. You don't need to. The only reason why you may want to do that is to increase the specificity of the selector. Because if you do that, essentially, you are not getting the expected behavior. Yeah, you see? So if I do that, because I want to change the background color of the submit button, that won't work, you see? So I got two options. Either I move it to the bottom, or the other option is I add the button prefix. So now the specificity of the selector is 20, so it will be applied, as you can see. Does the order matter, guys? Can I do, instead of button.submit, can I do submit.button? No? So you think that won't work? So the background color will be gray, right? That's not correct, guys. That's not correct. The order of the selectors doesn't matter. So the way Google Chrome will evaluate this expression is, please try to find an element with both class names, regardless of what the order is. It should have a class name submit, and it should have a class name button. It doesn't matter which one comes first, yeah? So as you can see, that still works. What else, guys? Any questions? No? You can. What do you mean you can use both? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You can build that however you want. Absolutely. Just be careful with the specificity. So I think it's very healthy, guys, to try to play with these numbers to figure out what will be the eventual style before you give up and you start adding weird things like it's less important. Yeah. So that because that proves that you didn't manage to orchestrate your CSS correctly. Anything else, guys? Let me show you something. Elijah was asking for some sort of, I don't know, table where we can find all the different selectors and the specificity and blah blah blah. So let's talk about movies. Have you watched, guys, The Shining? Yeah, of course, right? Shining, classic horror movie. Well, is it a horror movie? Now they play it in the afternoon, right? So it's probably not a horror movie anymore, but anyway, that's a classic movie, a masterpiece for some people. So why you may be thinking, why is that any related to specificity? If you go to Google and you search The Shining specificity, so there is a nice website called CSS Specificity.com where they make some analogies between the movie and how the way specificity works. CSS Specificity.com, guys. I mean, if you haven't watched the movie, that's probably a bit weird, right? But if you have watched the movie, here you can get the analogy. So, for instance, do you remember that, guys? The star selector is specificity 0. The tag selector got specificity 1. If you got two HTML selectors, that will have a specificity of 2. So the thing is, the analogy with the movie is the higher the specificity number is, the more dangerous or scary the situation becomes. Yeah, something like that. You see, so for instance, when you get a class, the specificity is 10. So you can actually get all the details. There are some corner cases that we haven't covered probably today, but eventually the joke is that, you see, guys, you got the style selector. I'm sure even if you haven't watched the movie, this particular scene is very famous. Yeah, the style selector has the specificity of 1000. You see, and eventually with the important suffix, you kill them all. Yeah, because they got the specificity of 10,000. So I think that's a nice joke, just to get a visual idea about the way specificity works. Yeah, and if you haven't watched the movie, now you got an excuse during the lockdown, right? You can convince your partners, guys, that you should watch the movie because of learning purposes. Yeah. Anything else, guys?